In this lesson, we are adding 3 licks to the 1-chord stomp you just learned. Now, these are very straightforward and very, very common. One of the things you want to consider in learning the blues is that it's a sort of mix and match kind of genre, in the sense that a lick you learn in one song is going to show up in 20 more, and the difference between one song and another might just be that we're using licks A, B, C, and D instead of licks A, C, D, and E, or however it shakes out. Many, many songs are very similar. And so, as I said, you can think about each lick you learn as something that's later on going to be applied elsewhere. I'm starting off with a simple bend, and this is a very useful thing to know how to do. It's a little different from if you've done any bending up the neck. We're going to address that later on. But down here in the first few frets, bends are kind of challenging. So I'm going to use my strongest finger, my index finger, on the 2nd fret of the G string, and I'm going to pull this string towards the floor by just twisting my arm and wrist a little. Now, I can raise the pitch of the string by pushing or pulling. Push towards the ceiling, pull towards the floor, and either way, we're talking about a wrist and arm movement, more so than a finger movement. This would be a bend with only the finger. It's okay, but it's more work than it needs to be, number one, and it's not really the right sound. That's the right sound. And there's a little something that happens with that note, the way the bend sort of blossoms a little. Because when I use my arm, I've got more power behind this. And this is something in general, this is a big point that I really like to stress a lot, but you don't play guitar with your fingers. You find the notes with your fingers. You make the sound with your hands and your arms. And that additional mass and weight is part of what produces tone. Never forget that. So I'm going to dip, also sort of rotating my forearm away, and this pulls the string, raises the pitch, and I'm not worrying about a half step or a whole step. We're not being that precise. It's more just that we want the note to move, to have a shape like this. There's a sense of up-down. The precision of it is not what we're going for right now. However, it is a triplet. 2, 3, triplet. So notice how that shakes out. Bend and release, lift. Is it a pull-off? Technically, it is, but in this case, a pull-off really does imply that you pluck with the fretting hand. And I don't think we need to do that here. I think it's enough just to release. But release is the operative word. Just let go, and then the finger moves over to the D string at the 2nd fret. And this is actually the first thing we play, so we have a 3-count pickup. Well, 3 counts, and then we play this as a pickup. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. That's our first lick. Our second lick goes like this. I've still got my index finger covering the 2nd fret. The note I'm aiming for is the 4th string fret 2, but my middle finger is free to grab the G note, 3rd fret of the 6th string, and we're going to do this. 2 and 3 and up. So we have to feel the triplets. Now notice how this lick alternates with the bending lick. The bending lick starts us off. 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and Odds are good, or at least it's very possible, that you're just feeling that boo-ba-doo-dum, because that shuffle is such a familiar sound. But do be aware that that open string, open E, is not accented. It is the 3rd beat of that triplet, 1 and 3rd beat of the 3rd triplet, I should say. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and Notice downstrokes. we can thump the quarter note in between if we want. If that helps you keep time, I would recommend it. So one option is just the licks. 2, 3. But it might be harder to keep your place. 2, 3. So if that's the case, 2, 3, 4, thump, 2, 3. Now comes our next lick, which is a variation. I'm playing a hammer-on. Timing-wise, it's the same triplet. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But then we go right away from this low G to the open G with an upstroke and the open A with a downstroke. So your triplet is triplet. Now I do have to do a bit of left hand muting, fret hand muting, to keep things from ringing out in a sloppy way. 2, 3. I'm backing up a hair. Now I do have to do a little bit of left hand muting. I don't want extraneous open strings. 2, 3. We're going to do this 3 times. And then lick 3, triplet, 1, 2, 3, a triplet. It's a little tricky to coordinate, but just remember it's triplet. If playing that G with a hammer-on throws off your picking hand, which is entirely possible, then don't play the hammer-on and do this. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And you know what? If your pick happens to hit the D string or the B string, it doesn't actually hurt anything. But the lick, 0-3-0, is like that. So there is a degree of precision in the picking hand, and if you find you struggle with it, pay close attention to that picking hand, especially in what I'm going to call your neutral position, which is the picking hand just hovering over the strings. Your neutral position should not be here, and it should not be here. And I'm saying neutral to mean that I'm not holding my arm down or holding my arm up. It's just floating. I want it over the strings, and then I want to be aware of how much I'm really moving, because many beginners move way more than they need to. Watch this. The downstroke on that second note was just big enough to move me to set up this upstroke, which is just big enough to set up this downstroke. And if you need to practice this without the track, do it. Practice triplet, talk it, and a triplet, triplet. Don't be afraid to use your voice. It's really important. It's actually the best tool you have to learn how to internalize rhythm. Okay, we're going to practice along with the track. Stay aware of your picking, but also always make sure that it fits the pocket, and remember that pocket is a feeling, is a sensation you are aiming for. And concentrating, for example, on your picking does have a way of getting in the way of that. So remember, that is what we're practicing here. Knowing exactly what your hands need to do, where they need to land, and then being able to coordinate that in a way that feels good. Something you want to keep in mind is that this is repetitive music. As I said, it's groove music, it's body music, it's rhythm music. And so if you are a lick-oriented person and you are just itching to get to the blazing licks, just remember that there is not a player on the planet who can play those blazing licks well in a way that makes you go, ooh, I want to be able to do that, who cannot also thump a delta stomp pocket. Remember that. That is the foundation of everything. Y'all ready to hit the road? We're going to head upriver.